All right, now let's go ahead and begin adding some content to the initial HTML structure which we created. Now in chapter 4, in the exercise, they start off with an image. So let's go ahead and add an image. Now you'll note that I might do things a little different than they have in the book. And that's all right. We all have our different styles. We have our different approach. Okay, as long as we use the elements correctly, that's what really matters. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and add an image element. And again, often there's some shorthand involved. So img is image. And what we need to do is now target a source for our image. So our source is src equals, and then our source, we call that source in the quote marks here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just end this element. All right. So let's go ahead and add the path to our source. And then we'll talk about this element as a whole and the names of the different parts of the element. So if we look inside of our root level folder, we see that our index file and our images folder is inside exercise 1. So the path that we're going to create first is called a relative path, meaning that where this image is relative to where this file and this folder, where they are. Okay? So let's go back, and what we're going to do is first we need to open the images folder. Okay? Because again, here's our index page, and what we need to do is get at this image. So we first need to tell this file to open this folder and then look for this image. All right. So source equals, then we're going to open the images folder, and then we'll have a /, which means open. So images open, and we now are going to target our JPEG file in this case. So .jpg. So we have images open, get this image. All right. Now, what we also want to do, you want to do this for every image. Okay, it's all about accessibility and usability. You want your content to be available to everybody, no matter what their access needs might be. So we're going to include an alt equals, and that alt means alternate, if you will. And you want to include a short, 5, 6, 7, maybe not more than 12 words, which adequately describe the image. So in this case, this is Mau Mau, the kitty cat. All right. Should be descriptive enough. So if for some reason this image is not available, then this text will show up. Or if someone is accessing the page that needs to be told, maybe they cannot see the images. So they have a screen reader which will tell them or describe to them what image is being loaded on the screen. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and right after our cat here, our kitty cat image, let's add an HR element, which is a horizontal rule. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at this element real quick. This as a whole is an element. This is an open or an empty element because it does not end with / image, like body opens, body closes. This is a closed element. This is an open element. All right. There's more closed elements than there are opened elements, but just so you're aware, there are the two and they're different. Okay. Now, inside our element, we have our HTML tag, in this case, image. Then we have an attribute, in this case, source. The attribute has a value, or an an attribute value. And this is a relative path that is opening the images folder and then targeting this image. Okay. Now, while we're focused on the JPEG here, let's just talk about our name. So we have naming conventions. I tend to use hyphens quite a bit. You could also do this. Okay. You could use an underscore. You could do this. Capitalize each word beginning with the second word. What's important is you never do this. Do not leave empty spaces. Okay? It's not that the world's going to end, it's just bad form. You should not leave empty spaces in your file names. Okay? So I'm going to go back and add my hyphen, like so. All right, let's go ahead and save. And then I'm going to just open a new web browser here. And let's take our index and drag it inside. And you'll see we have our image and we have our horizontal rule. Okay, let's go ahead and hide this for a second. Now, let's add some text. Now you'll notice here we have matter of fact, I think I left the headlines off. Okay, so we have our headline, and then you'll notice that we have some subheads, and then we have some body copy. So let's go ahead and set that up next. So after our image, let's go ahead and add an H1 tag, which means heading 1. This is a closed element, so we'll do this. Okay, and I'm just going to copy paste to speed things up here. So I have a text file that I can do this from. So let's just add in our headline. So H1 is heading 1. We have heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. H1 is the most important. H6 is the least important. So H2 is a subhead. H3 is a sub-subhead. H4, subhead. You get the idea. They're just lesser of importance as we go down to H6. How you assign them is really up to you. Okay, what's what? That's something that you're gonna work out in your own projects. H1 is a main headline. H2 could be a subhead to a headline, and I have 3 heads with some body copy underneath. So I'm going to use H3 like so. And let's make sure we go ahead and close H3. And following H3 will be a P tag. And we need to make sure we close our P tag. Now you'll notice in this example, there are 3 of these subheads, subheads. And then we have our P tags, our body copy, or our paragraph tag. So there's 3 of those. So I'm just going to copy. And I'll add a little extra space. I do this just so it's easier for you to see visually. All right. So now let's take our first H3, which is our subhead. We'll copy and paste. And then I'll go ahead and get my next subhead and paste it inside. And we'll get our third subhead. We'll save. Let's go ahead and take a look. So I'm just going to refresh. And here are the 3 subheads. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and add in our paragraph text, our body text. So here's the first one. Here goes the second. And here goes the third. So we'll save. We'll refresh our page. And there we go. Okay. Now this third paragraph might be a little long compared to the first two. So I'm just going to do this. I'll just find what I think is a good break point. Maybe right here. Okay. So I'm just going to get rid of that space. I'll add a space just so it's a little easier to see. We have our opening p tag here. So I'm just going to create a closing p tag. So we'll make this a paragraph, a shorter paragraph. Then we need to make sure we open a paragraph because that paragraph closes here. Okay, so we added our opening and then we added a closing and we're going to save. Okay. Now I created this space right here, but this space, just to show you, even if we do this, okay, and then we save, and let's refresh our page, you'll see that there's a return, a paragraph return. Even if I were to do this and add several spaces and save and refresh, you'll notice there's no more space here. It doesn't work that way in this environment. Okay? This is a chunk of space and this is a chunk of space. And neither care that we left some space here. Okay? So we can't format our pages that way. So I do tend to leave a space in the code. It's not always a good idea, but I tend to do that just so it's easier for you to see visually. All right. There we go. We just created what is basically the first part or first exercise in chapter 4.